A $50 million private jet can cost its owner more than $3 million every year, even before we talk about the opportunity cost of the $50 million itself. And here's the strange part. The aircraft doesn't need to be flying for much of that bill to exist. So let's follow one hypothetical owner through a single year. Imagine they buy a large cabin, long-range private jet for $50 million. To keep the numbers realistic, we'll assume the aircraft flies about 300 hours during the year. The exact costs vary enormously by aircraft, location, crew structure, and maintenance schedule. So this is an illustrative financial model, not a universal price tag. The first expense is the one you can see, the aircraft. But the moment the purchase is completed, another clock starts running. Crew, hangar, insurance, management, training, and other fixed expenses can easily push the annual bill well above $1 million for a large cabin aircraft. Industry estimates put fixed costs for large cabin jets around $1 million or more, while current ownership models for an aircraft such as a Gulfstream G650 can reach roughly $1.8 million in fixed annual costs, depending on assumptions. Let's say our owner spends approximately $1.8 million before the jet even leaves the ground. Now the aircraft finally flies, and every hour starts adding another layer of cost. For our model, assume fuel averages $7.25 per gallon. That's an illustrative 2026 assumption because actual fuel prices vary by airport and region. At 300 flight hours, fuel alone could approach $1 million for a large long-range jet under some cost models. But fuel isn't the only thing moving with the aircraft. There are maintenance reserves, landing and navigation fees, catering, cabin services, and other flight-related expenses. So our 300-hour year could look something like this. Roughly $1.8 million in fixed costs, around $1.4 million in variable operating costs, giving us approximately $3.2 million for the year. That's about $10,700 for every flight hour. And remember, that's before asking the most uncomfortable question in the entire calculation. What happened to the $50 million? Because if you put $50 million into an asset, that money can't simultaneously be earning returns somewhere else. Suppose, purely as an illustration, that the same $50 million could have generated a 5% annual return elsewhere. That's $2.5 million of potential annual return. Now, the economics look very different. Our jet has cost roughly $3.2 million to operate. Add a hypothetical $2.5 million opportunity cost, and the economic cost of keeping that aircraft could approach $5.7 million for the year. And we're still not done. The aircraft itself can lose value. Depreciation varies dramatically depending on the model, age, maintenance condition, configuration, and market. A newer aircraft with strong demand can behave very differently from an aging jet that needs expensive maintenance. This is where private jet ownership becomes less like buying a luxury product and more like managing an asset. Because the owner isn't simply paying for transportation, they're managing a depreciating machine with enormous fixed costs. And that creates a fascinating problem. What happens if the owner only flies 50 hours a year? The fuel bill falls, but the hangar doesn't disappear. The pilots don't suddenly work for free. Insurance doesn't vanish. Management costs remain. Much of the $1.8 million fixed cost is still sitting there. This means utilization matters enormously. The more useful hours the owner gets from the aircraft, the more those fixed costs can be spread across actual trips. And that's one reason some owners put their aircraft into charter service when they're not using it. Imagine our owner flies 150 hours personally and makes another 150 hours available for charter. Now the aircraft is producing revenue instead of sitting on the ground. But this isn't free money. Charter flights create their own fuel, crew, maintenance, positioning, and management costs. The owner also has to accept that their aircraft is being used by other customers, which can increase wear and complicate scheduling. Still, even partial charter use can change the economics. Instead of asking, "How much does my jet cost?" the owner can start asking a more interesting question. How much does my jet cost me after someone else pays to use it? And this is where ownership can become financially rational for a very specific type of customer. If someone flies hundreds of hours every year, needs unpredictable schedules, regularly travels to destinations poorly served by commercial aviation, and values the time saved at an extremely high level, the economics become easier to justify. But if someone flies 40 or 50 hours a year, the calculation can become brutal. They have essentially bought a $50 million solution to a problem they barely have. That is why chartering can make more sense for many wealthy travelers. They pay for access when they need it without carrying the entire fixed cost structure of ownership. And this reveals the biggest misconception about private jets. The richest person in the room isn't necessarily the person who owns the jet. Sometimes the financially smarter person is the one who knows exactly when not to own it. Because a $50 million aircraft isn't really a $50 million decision. It could be a $3 million a year operating decision, a $2.5 million a year opportunity cost decision, a depreciation decision, a utilization decision, and ultimately, a question of what that aircraft is actually producing in return. For our hypothetical owner, the jet may provide something impossible to put neatly into a spreadsheet: hours saved, privacy, flexibility, and control. But if the aircraft costs roughly $3.2 million a year to operate, the real question isn't whether the owner can afford the jet. It's whether those 300 hours in the sky are worth the millions required to keep them there. Because in private aviation, the most expensive part of the flight isn't always the fuel. Sometimes it's the decision to own the airplane in the first place.